Hello, everybody. This is Leo with One Happy Widow. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're here for the live, feel free to put in the chat where you're from, where you're visiting us from. And if you are watching the recording, feel free to post any questions or comments that you might have in the comment section below. And I'm going to go ahead and get started for today. So this will be the second live that I've had today because the first live that I had was a live Zoom session with our new members of the Surviving the Holidays private event that I have created. So we just started that today. It was the first day, and it's going to go all the way through the end of December. So all the way through New Year's Eve. New Year's Day, technically. So I just wanted to let you know that it is not too late to sign up for that group. It is still open for anyone who would like to purchase a ticket to enter into the event. The description is the link is in the description below. It's just Surviving the Holidays 2024. We had a few technical glitches and we are getting through all of those, getting the Facebook group opened up, but we're working through all of that. We had a really nice first live session this morning with the Zoom, and I'll be scheduling some evening Zoom sessions with them as well so that we can have a chance for all of the members to be able to participate in the live sessions. So if you are still thinking about it on the fence, you haven't missed anything, go ahead and sign up. It is onehappywidow.com/holidays 2024, holidays 2024. So if you are thinking about it, click on the link, and there is a little video that kind of gives you an overview and gives you all the information about the group. And that way, if you want to get signed up, then you can get in there and we'll get you in the group. We'll send you the links to all of the goodies and the link to the recording from this morning so you can catch up. And I'm creating all of the PDFs and downloadable things as we speak. And so anyway, if you're wondering how you're going to get through the holidays this year and feeling kind of lost, confused, feeling sad, feeling lonely, this is the place to be. So we can hold your hand and surround you with love and care and advice and just a shoulder to cry on and an ear to listen, and just a nice, caring group of people together that are going through this journey together. So if you're interested, go ahead and click that link and check it out, get the information, and ask any questions if you have any. I'll be happy to answer any questions and to have a few more people join our little group that we've got going on there. So today, what I wanted to talk about is I'll probably be doing a lot of things about the holidays and kind of getting through the holidays and surviving the holidays and things. Oh, it's going in and out. Okay, hold on a second. It says my audio is going in and out. All right, hold on a second. Let me check. Okay, so that was muted and now it's okay. Kathy Davis says it's good here. Maybe I'm just moving around a lot. So maybe that's what it is. I'll try to stay close to the mic. My mic is like right there, right below the screen. So I think it might just be me moving around a little bit and getting away from the microphone. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. So today, like I said, I want to talk mostly about, I'll probably be doing a lot of holiday type topics during the next few weeks. And also when we do the live sessions in our Zoom groups for the Surviving the Holidays, that kind of helps me to get a feel for what some of the other members are going through, what their struggles might be, what their questions might be and concerns. And that also helps me to come up with ideas of what I can talk about on my Lunch with Leos on Mondays that we are here doing. So today I want to talk about like how to find your tribe, finding your tribe, and really not just during the holidays, but just during your grief journey in general. So I will share with you. Oh, my dog just came in. She's like, "I'll be your tribe. Come on up here. Come here. Go ahead and make your." Yep. Okay. Hello. She's okay. Thank you. This is Jelly Bean. She is a Velcro dog. She doesn't like being by herself. And so she heard me talking and she must have known she wanted. She said, "Oh, you need a tribe? I'll be your tribe." So there she is. She's a little spasmastic, but most of the time she's pretty sweet. She's just a little bit, um, bouncy off the walls kind of thing. All right, let's go. All right. So now that she made her cameo, put her out there. I try to lock the door, but she has figured out how to push until it kind of shakes and then the lock comes down and then there you go. She's very smart. Okay. Anyway, so I was about to share the little story about I remember the first time early in my grief. So at the time that Dewey died it was in 2017 and I was 40 43. I want to say I was 43. He was 42 when he died, and I was a tad bit older than him. So I think I had already turned 43. Anyway, I was still fairly young to be a widow, early 40s, 4 kids at home. And needless to say, I'm somewhat of an introvert anyway. And I know it might be hard to believe when you see the videos and you see how I can talk for a straight hour plus without even hardly taking a breath. Um, so I don't mind. I don't mind being around people. I don't mind speaking in front of people. Um, so I'm not necessarily shy. It's just that being around a lot of people um, drains my energy. So this is what I understand the difference between introverts and extroverts is that everybody can be around people, or both types of people can be around people. Maybe not everybody, but it's not just that an introvert doesn't like being around people. That's not really the case. The difference is that an introvert, it will drain your social battery, your emotional battery when you're around a lot of people. So when you go to a party or you go to a social gathering, or maybe you go to work and you're around a lot of people, like I used to be a school teacher. So that means I was around a lot of people for basically the whole day. And most of them were young people and they definitely drained me. So the difference is that an introvert, after being around large social gatherings and social situations, their battery is drained. And so they need to be by themselves in order to charge their battery back up. Whereas an extrovert, they get a charge. Their battery gets charged by being around people. And so if you guys have watched my videos before and you've heard me talk about Mama, Mama is my late husband's mother, my kid's grandmother, and she is 100% an extrovert. She loves being around people. She thrives on being around people. My second daughter, Braylon, she is the same way. She's an extrovert. She just loves being around people. She'll say that she's an introvert, but I really don't know. I think she's more of an extrovert. I'll let her tell you her story. But the point is, me being somewhat of an introvert, I can be around people, but I also don't really search out large crowds. I don't search out big social interactions and social gatherings. I don't like the idea of going to like concerts and big sporting events and, situations where there's going to be a whole lot of people and a lot of noise, and a lot of people I don't know. Um, like last year, we hosted Thanksgiving dinner at our house, and I nearly had a panic attack because my husband had to leave to go pick up something. I think he was picking up the meat or something. I don't know. He's picking something up, or he had to go do something. And right about the time that he took off and left, all of his family members showed up at the house at the same time. So like 12 people showed up, a bunch of kids, a bunch of grown-ups. I mean, I knew all of them, but like they're not my blood relatives. So they're his relatives and they're showing up at our house. I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough seats for everybody to sit. And they're all standing around like they're just standing there. And I'm like, okay, have a seat wherever you'd like. And nobody sat down. They just stood there, just stared at me. Like nobody said anything. It was just like was like 14 people in a room and nobody was talking. And I felt like since I was the hostess, I needed to provide the entertainment or provide the topic of conversation, or like I needed to lead the social atmosphere. And I'm panicking and freaking out. I'm texting JP and I'm like, when are you going to get back? Because all of your family's here and I don't know what to do. So, like it all came kind of crashing down on me at the same time. So the point is, when I first became a widow and I was by myself, it's not that being by myself was so difficult, but it was that I don't have a large social circle. Like, I don't have a ton of friends. I'm not like a social butterfly. I have a few really close friends and family members, and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm totally cool with just having a few people that are in my little, my little circle. And anybody outside of that, I really don't, I can feel uncomfortable reaching out outside of that little small circle and asking for support or asking for help. And so, even though I worked with a really good group of people, I was in a school where the people that I worked with, my department, I was a special ed teacher. So all the other special ed teachers in my department were fantastic. I mean, they just reached out. They gave me a bunch of gift cards for like food places, so I'd be able to buy meals for the kids. My department chair, my boss, she came over and basically just mother henned my youngest daughter and my other kids, and she would come over and be like, "Okay, I'm taking the kids to the pool. Have them ready." And I was like, okay. So she basically inserted herself into my support group without, instead of asking, "Hey, what can I do to help?" or "Let me know if you need any help." She just came in and said, "Hey, I'm taking the kids to the pool," or "Hey, I'm taking Dallas to my house for the afternoon and we're going to melt crayons on rocks and we're going to make art," or whatever. And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I wouldn't have even thought to ask. And even if I'd have thought to ask, I probably wouldn't have asked because um, I'm just, some people are like that. I just don't like asking for help. I totally don't mind helping people. I don't mind if other people ask me for help, but I have something prevents me from being able to ask for support because I just don't want to burden other people. I don't want to bother other people. I don't want to, like, I like having my family and my really close friends to know that, okay, I can ask them for anything and they won't mind. But other people that are sort of outside of that immediate group, it's a little harder for me. And so for that reason, I didn't really have a really great support group that I could count on when I really was struggling. And on top of that, I did not know anybody in person that was widowed. I'm trying to think, like, in my mind, I'm trying to think if I even had like older people that I worked with, and I can't. If I did know anybody that was widowed, I did not know who they were. And so when you're 40 some years old and you lose your spouse and you're still a mom, your peer group is like 0, right? Like, you probably don't know hardly anybody in person. You might know one person, you might know a very small group of people, but it's very unlikely that you're gonna know very many people in your peer group that are in your age group, that, in your social circle, that's also widowed and has kids. And so because of that, it was very isolating because even if I could ask for help or did ask for help or did get help, I could I could get somebody to support me. Like I said, people brought me food and people helped me out with the kids, but like sitting and talking to somebody about how I was feeling and what I was going through, to somebody that could not relate at all. Um, it was like I didn't even want to do that because I knew that if I talked to my friends or my coworkers or whatever about what I was struggling with, they wouldn't be able to relate because they're not going through it. They're not going to be able to give me an advice because they've never been through it. And even if they tried to give me advice, it probably was not accurate because they don't know what to tell me. So they might have told me something just to try to fix it, because that's what they want to do. They just want to fix it. So they'll say anything to try to, um, to try to make you feel better. And there isn't anything that they can say to make you feel better. And so for that reason, I'm taking my headphones off because I feel like I talk way, way too loud when I have my headphones in. So anyway, um, so the point is that it was just hard for me because even in a room full of people, I felt isolated because I felt like I was the only person who knew what I was going through. And it didn't mean I felt sorry for myself. It didn't mean I was like hiding in a corner feeling all pathetic and pitiful. It just meant that, like, when I just needed to sit down and just, talk about my struggles or my feelings or my loneliness or my sadness or my emptiness or my, just those typical things that you feel when you're in grief. I didn't have anybody to share that with because even though there would have been people willing to listen, I didn't want to burden them with that because it's like, well, what are they going to do? How are they going to help? I mean, it's nice to have somebody listen, but what I really wanted was like somebody who knew what I was talking about, somebody who could relate to what I was feeling, somebody who could be like, yeah, I totally get it. I've totally been there. I've gone through that before. I've had these feelings before. I've had these thoughts before. Just validating your own doubts, your own struggles, your own low feelings. Just having somebody there to be like, yep, I get you. I've been there. It's comforting to know that number one, you're not alone, but number two, that you're not the only person in the world feeling these weird things or thinking these weird thoughts or wondering if you're, we talked about in our live session today about how you wonder if you're doing it right. That was my biggest thing was after Dewey died, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing this widow thing right. Like I don't, I'm failing at being a widow because I felt like I should be more sad or I felt like I should be more, I don't know, like depressed. I didn't want to be more depressed, but I was like, it scared me a little because I was like, I'm dealing with this a little too well. And does that mean I am like a total heartless person? And so, which obviously did not mean that, but it had a lot to do with the anticipatory grief that I was feeling and the fact that I already knew he was going to die when he died. And so I'd had some time to transition into that grief slowly and gradually. So when the time actually came, I don't want to say I was prepared for it, but I knew it was coming and I had prepared as best as I could. And it wasn't like I was just going along my merry way one day and I get a phone call that says, by the way, your husband just died. That's a totally different transition into grief, an immediate one, a catastrophic one, a traumatic one, as opposed to this gradual, okay, so he's sick. What are we looking at? Is he going to live through this? Oh, he's not going to live through this. Oh, okay. So what kind of time frame are we looking at? Oh, a year? Oh, okay. So what is that year going to look like? Is there going to be a lot of pain? Is there going to be a lot of treatments? Is there going to be a lot of like what does that look like? What do we need to do in that year to make sure that we make the most of it? Like all these things are happening in real time. And by the time he didn't even come close to lasting a year. He only lasted 4 months, but if 4 months is still different than 4 seconds, right? So 4 months was still a chance for me to slowly transition into that grief mode. Um, and you still don't know exactly what to expect, but at least you can try to mentally prepare as best you can. So the point is, as I'm transitioning into this grief, I'm feeling like I'm handling this a little too well, and I think it's just because my heart shut down, my brain sort of took over. I went into robot mode. I had 4 kids to raise, I had a job to go to, I had bills to pay, I had to keep a house, I had to keep food on the table, I had to make sure the food was bought or cooked or whatever. I had grieving kids to deal with. Like I was busy. I was busy being a mom, busy being a solo parent, busy being a full-time worker, a teacher. I had students that needed me. Like I was too damn busy to make time to grieve. And so I didn't, not very well anyway. Um, so I didn't really have, like a tribe, I didn't have a support group. So I went on Facebook and that's where I found several Facebook groups that helped me. And so Sharon says, I don't really have that support either outside of my adult children and maybe my siblings on occasion. There's no one. My best friend of 55 years passed 3 months before my husband. Oh, that's really sad. Sharon, that's, to have that person that you could have talked to and felt comfortable with, and to have that person not be there as well as your spouse not being there, that's like a double whammy. And I have my sister too, and I can talk to her. And she, even though she is not widowed, she's divorced. And I guess we're just close enough to where even though she doesn't relate, I do feel comfortable enough to where I can just talk to her about stuff and it's not as awkward. But if it's like a coworker or a neighbor or a friend that you sort of have in a social group, but it's like an acquaintance. That's a tough burden to put on them emotionally, um, to try to talk up through your feelings and things like that. So the question, I guess, comes up that we talked about in our Zoom session this morning is like, the first question I wanted to ask all of the ladies that were introducing themselves and talking about their situation and how their husband had died and how they had become widowed, and what their situation is now, whether it's working or staying at home. And so when you're a young widow, I think a lot of times you stay busy because you're still working, or you have kids to raise, you have a house to keep, and you have things that you have to do, like if you're not retired yet, let's say, or let's say you weren't even working before, but now you got to pay the bills. So you got to figure out how that is done. Right. And so you got to get on with the business of making your life, like the business of making sure your bills are paid and making sure that your kids are taken care of and things like that. Whereas if you're in a situation where you're older, I think the biggest challenge is, I mean, obviously you want to make sure your bills are paid, right? I get that part, but if you're retired and you've been retired and you have a certain standard of living and however that's going, I think the biggest challenge there is loneliness, because as you get older, like, just like Sharon shared with us here, your friends, as you're getting older, um, people that are your family and friends are also getting older, and some of them are dying and some of them are not around. And then people seem to be busy, and I hate to say this, it just seems like before I became widowed, I was guilty of this as well. So I'm just going to say it. But when you hear about a woman who's widowed and you hear about a real young woman that's widowed, you're like, oh, that poor lady. Oh, that is so tough. And you hear about an older lady, let's say a lady in her 80s that's widowed, and you're like, that's so sad. And then you just kind of keep going. It's almost like you don't feel it the same way. You don't feel that same amount of empathy or sympathy for someone who's older, because it's almost like, well, they're older. I mean, of course, nobody lives forever. And so how long do you think they're going to live? And I'm not saying it in a callous way. I'm just saying it as like people just say, when an older person dies, it's sad. And then you think, well, it was their time. When a younger person dies, you think, oh, how much how much life were they robbed of? So it's a different type of sympathy, and I think about that with my late husband a lot. He lived 42 years and I just turned 51. So I've already got 9 more years of life that I got to live that he didn't. And I'm getting older now, but I still don't feel old. And so I think about how much of life he was robbed. Like he didn't get to see his kids grow up. He didn't get to see any of his grandchildren get born. He only got to see one of his kids graduate from high school. And so I think about all the things that he missed out on. Like he missed out on half of a life. There's lots of people out there who live, if he's 42, there's lots of people who live to be 84, and that is twice as long as he lived. So honestly, when I think about he only got half a life, he literally only got half of a life. And so, anyway, I was asking the ladies in the Zoom session today, what kind of, support group do you have? And the funny thing is, even before I asked them, a lot of them just told me, but I've got a lot of friends and I've got a church group and I've got this. And so it was almost like they already knew I was going to ask, and they're wanting to tell you like, but I'm okay because I have this. And, I think the most important thing for you to have is to have find your tribe, find your support group. And it might not always be other widowed people, but I will tell you that it is nice to have other widowed people in your support group, because you feel like, okay, first of all, the elephant in the room about talking about your spouse is out. You can talk about them. You can not talk about them. You can laugh. You can cry. You don't have to worry about, oh, people are going to wonder, why am I cutting jokes over here while I'm talking about my dead husband? Like, I don't worry about people thinking that when I'm in a Zoom room full of widowed people. But if I was in a room of coworkers where nobody else was widowed and I was talking about my late husband and then I cracked a joke and started laughing, I would wonder, are they thinking I'm callous? Are they thinking, what is wrong with this lady? Like she She just told me her husband died and now she's cracking jokes. I don't know if they think that, but I'm conscious of wondering, are they thinking that's weird? You know? So all of that stuff goes away when you're in a group of people who are also grieving. Maybe not grieving a spouse, but grieving a close family member, somebody who's the secondary loss of them in your life is devastating in the same amount of way as losing a spouse, like losing a child or losing losing a close family member that lives with you, something like that. So, um, anyway, that's really what I want to talk about today is that, um, when you're thinking about your grief and your situation, you're feeling very lonely and you're feeling low and you're feeling confused and you're feeling like I don't know if I can do this, or I'm not sure if I can do this, and or I don't want to do this, and you're feeling angry and you're feeling all the feelings that you're going through when that in that grief point. Um, who is your tribe? Who's your support group? Who's in your support group? And if you don't already have a support group, then as much as I hate to tell you that's what you got to do, but that becomes on you. And so you got to go out and find one. Most of the people that I talk to today, and a lot of people that I talk to in my other groups, is a church group. So if you have a religion and practice a religion, then go join a church. Go start visiting a church. Even if you're not, go visit a church. Like our church will take, we welcome anybody. We welcome anybody. And because if you're not already saved, then we want you there so we can work on getting you saved so we can have you in our family in heaven, right? But there's a lot of caring people in church, and there's a lot of widows also in church, and there's a lot of grief groups that you can join that are in church. If you seek out a grief share group, grief share is I don't know I guess it's nonprofit. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is, because grief share is a group that meets in just about every town in America. Probably within driving distance of you, there is a grief share somewhere if you're in America. They even have some online, but I think it's better to have it in person. It's always housed in a church somewhere. And so, because it is a faith-based, um, ministry or support group. But you don't have to be a Christian to sign up for it. And it's usually either free or like maybe $5 to cover the cost of like the workbook or whatever. But it's like a 13 weekly sessions, and it's all for people who have lost a family member who has died. Now, it's not all widows. It could be a child, it could be a spouse, it could be a friend, but it's all for people who are grieving the death of a close relative. And so usually there's a mix of people, that are widowed or that have lost a close family member. But just knowing that there is a group of people that you can talk with and just let it out and have people not feel like they have to give you the solution. Like I don't want somebody to sit and listen to me and then give me all the answers. I don't want to talk to somebody because I need them to tell me, okay, this is what you're going to do. We're going to solve this problem here. Okay, we can fix this. First, you're going to do this. And second, you're going to do that. And then third, you're going to do this. And then everything's going to be fixed and it's all going to be better. That's what non-widowed people want to do for us. And they know that they can't. And that's what's frustrating, because you can't fix it. Right? The only way to fix it is to bring your husband or wife back from the dead, and that's not going to work. And so the work is on us. But sometimes when you're feeling like you're all by yourself and you start wondering, okay, I'm trying to do the work, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know, or I don't feel any better. Like I'm doing all the things I think I'm supposed to do, but I don't feel any better. What the heck? Or I'm doing the things and something just doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm not doing it right. I feel like I'm not getting any better. I'm not making any progress, those types of things. So that's when you find your group, you find your tribe, you find your support group, and you bounce your thoughts off of them. And then you hear their situation. Listening to other people going through their own grief journey can sometimes put things in perspective for you. Because number one, it lets you know that you're not the only person in the world who's feeling this way. Um, and sometimes that humbles us a little bit and kind of centers us and reminds us that, hey, we're not the only one, okay, that's going through this mess. Number two, it's not a competition to outdo everyone else's grief or trauma or victimization. And number three, maybe helping other people by sharing your circumstances and your experiences can maybe help somebody else. Like if you're in fresh grief, you want to seek out people who've been through it a little bit so that you can see ahead and see where someone who's a little farther ahead of you on the journey and see how they're doing and say, "Oh, okay, well if they can get through what I've been through, then maybe there's hope for me too." And then as you move through the journey, you start looking back and surrounding yourself by people who are really fresh in this grief journey and saying, "Hey, I've been there, and don't worry because you're gonna make it through. Like, trust me, I've been where you are, and I made it through that period and that phase, and I'm farther ahead now, and it does get better, or it does get easier, or you do get stronger." However you want to say it. It depends on how you want to look at it, but I try to say that it doesn't necessarily get easier because the problem is still there. We just get stronger and better at handling it. It's like going to the gym when you're real weak. You go to the gym on the first day and you try to pick up this really, really heavy weight and you can't even lift it because you're weak and you're not in shape. And so you can't even lift it off the ground. Then you start working out with little smaller weights and you start doing the routines and you stay consistent and you do the work, then eventually you can pick up that heavy weight and it might still be really, really heavy, but you can pick it up. And then you keep on doing it and you keep getting stronger and you keep working out. And then guess what? You can pick up that weight easily. So the weight did not change. That weight that you've been trying to pick up since the beginning that you couldn't even lift off the ground and now you can lift it up over your head, it weighs the same as it did from the very beginning. The weight did not change. You got stronger. You got more capable of lifting that same weight that you couldn't lift before because of what you've been through, because of the trauma that you put yourself through and that you lived through and got over and then got stronger and more able to handle it. And so that's how I like to see it, is the grief is still the grief. It's still the same, but I am better able to handle it because I've lived with it for longer and I've figured out things that work for me and um, figured out what I need to worry about and what I don't need to worry about. I've figured out what I can handle by myself and what I need help handling. I have figured out things that trigger me into certain, grief episodes. And I've learned that sometimes I can avoid those and sometimes I don't need to avoid those. Sometimes I just need to follow right down the path of that trigger and cry it on out and feel the feelings and feel the pain and remember the times and cry the tears and get it, cleanse myself and let off some of the pressure and then start again. And then sometimes, I don't need to put myself through triggering moments that I know are going to trigger me all the time because I don't want to be triggered constantly. And so I've learned how to navigate and avoid when I need to avoid and go through when I need to go through. And, it's a rocky road, but instead of just barreling straight through it and getting hit by everything left and right, I've learned how to navigate a little bit and turn and steer and slow down and speed up and navigate through the rocky terrain of grief a little better than I did in the very beginning. And so, and sometimes I can recognize when I'm starting to go down that road of, oh, I'm feeling it and I'm just having a down time. And so recognizing that and being able to talk to somebody about it also helps. And, and we talked about clusters, clusters of triggers also. It seems like a lot of us have clusters. Like June is a cluster month for me. It's got the date of Dewey's death. It's got Father's Day, and it's got our anniversary. So June 10th is our anniversary. June 17th is his date of death, and Father's Day is always somewhere in there. That Sunday, somewhere in there. November right now is a cluster of milestones for me because November 22nd, which this Friday coming up, would be his 50th birthday. I remember he died when he was 42, so he would be turning 50. That's a big milestone. I remember that milestone for myself. And I'm like, wow, he would have been 50 today. So this Friday is his birthday. And then we've got Veterans Day was on the 11th. And then we've got Thanksgiving coming up on next Thursday. And so November is always a cluster, of traumatic moments and milestones. The holidays is always a cluster for all of us because even if we don't observe, and even if we don't celebrate them, it's everywhere. You cannot escape the holiday season, right? It's commercialized and it's all over the TV, it's all over the radio, it's all over. Decorations are everywhere. It's just everywhere. And so it's a tough one for a lot of us because you got the Thanksgiving when you're supposed to be thankful, and you're like, thankful for what? My husband's dead. How am I supposed to be thankful for that? Like that's the stinking thinking, right? And so it's hard. It's hard to try to count your blessings. It's hard to think of things to be thankful for when you're widowed. And to be honest, it's really hard to listen to someone who's not widowed to tell you, well, think about, try to think of things that you're thankful for. You want to smack them. And so sometimes it's easier or more palatable for it that advice to come from someone who's also widowed. And so that's the whole reason why we're doing that holiday thing, because our next week, when we do our live session, we're going to be talking about gratitude and thankfulness and counting our blessings and thinking about those types of things. And it seems kind of backwards because it's like, that's a hard thing to ask somebody to count their blessings especially when it's their first holiday without their spouse. And so you're going to have to dig deep to find those things. And the things that we find, like the blessings are up here and the grief is down here. There's never going to be enough blessings to outweigh the grief. And so it's like, sometimes it's like, well, why would I need to try? It's not going to work. Well, we'll talk about the details of that in our Zoom session when you're in our group. But, but it is, you have to try to get into that mindset. And so we all get there together. And so the whole point of this video today is just to tell you that finding your people, finding your tribe, finding your group, your support group is very important for your healing. And so if you don't have it, you need to go find it. If you're completely by yourself, go find a grief share group, go find a Facebook group, go join a church, like I said, join a gym, join a crafting club, a sewing group, a game group, a card group, a bowling league. I'm just throwing a whole bunch of stuff out there, but there's stuff online and there's stuff in person. And so, it's just important to go out and find a group of people that you feel comfortable with that will help surround you and walk with you through these tough times. And if nothing else, you have nobody and you have nothing else and you feel like you have nobody around you and you just simply just don't want to go out and you don't want to socialize or whatever, then get yourself a pet. Go get a cat or go get a dog. And because they have unconditional love and you can talk to them all you want to and they won't try to fix your problems. They'll just love on you and they'll just keep you company. And sometimes they'll just, be there with their presence. And in addition to that, it gives you a reason to get up every day. Because when they have to go to the bathroom and they need water and they need food and they are completely reliant on you to take care of them because they can't take care of themselves in your house. If you have no other reason to get up or you think you don't have any other reason to get up and you can't make yourself the reason why you get up, which you should, but if you can't get there yet, then get yourself, a pet so that, well, I don't feel like getting up, but I know my dog has to be fed and walked. And so I'll get up for that. And sometimes the hardest part is getting up. And then once you get up and you get moving, things seem to kind of go in that routine. Routine takes over and things start to feel a little easier. So for me, getting up is tough. It's not always because of grief. Sometimes it's because of my ADHD, and I have trouble transitioning from one activity to another, including the activity of laying in bed versus the activity of getting up and taking my medicine and brushing my teeth and getting dressed. And, that's why I schedule these lives a lot of the time, because the widowed community that I've created, or that I haven't created the community, but the space I've created for the widow community, um, people are people are expecting me at certain times, and so I go ahead and um, I what's the word I'm trying to think of? Ugh, menopause brain. I have trouble with words sometimes, but I go ahead and commit myself. I commit my time. I commit myself to a certain schedule. Um, because if I don't get up for myself, I will get up for a live session that I have to get up for, to meet for some people who are waiting for me. And so sometimes that's why I did that at 10 o'clock in the morning, because I'm like, well, I know I got to get up and get dressed and make myself somewhat presentable for the people that are waiting for me. And if they weren't, I might not get up. I might just, sit in the bed and watch TV. And next thing you know, it's lunch. And next thing you know, it's mid-afternoon. And next thing et cetera. And so I got kids. I got kids that need me. Got a husband that's looking, for me when he gets home. Now I have a widowed community that is waiting for me to make a live video. I have a dog that has to be walked every morning. So those types of things. And so, like I said, if you don't have that support group, if you don't have that tribe, then go out and find it. And if you're not sure where to look, then join our Facebook group. Join our Surviving the Holidays group. We've got a ready-made community waiting for you, to help you, and open and welcoming, and waiting for all people who need support and help, of all ages, of all genders, of all lifestyles, of all political leanings, of all religious beliefs or not, of all socioeconomic status, of all race, of all nationality. I mean, we cover the gambit, and we're welcoming to any person who wants help, who is grieving the loss of their partner in life. And so I would encourage you to just check it out and ask questions if you have any. And let me see. It is nonprofit, and I am a part. Okay, so Sharon says she is a part of Grief Share. Yeah, I thought it was, but I wasn't. I didn't want to speak specifically because I wasn't exactly sure. But and I have been to some Grief Share. It was helpful. I've shared this before, though. I didn't finish the whole sessions because this is going to sound mean, but it was a pretty small group. And there was one person in particular that was, she was freshly widowed, and she definitely needed the group. Let's put it that way. But she tended to dominate the sessions. And so if I would start talking, she would sort of cut me off within a moment, and then she would kind of hijack the conversation. And I felt for her, because I knew she needed that. But at the same time, I was like, well, if she needs this much of the attention and she needs this much of the time of the group, then I'm not getting what I need out of it, because she's, sort of monopolizing it. And so rather than try to fight against it and be frustrated, I just felt like, you know what? And so I left it to her, and I felt like maybe I just needed another round of different group of people who, don't need as much of the not chronic. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Anyway, she was just like a month out, and so she needed a lot, and I left so that she could have it, so that she could get what she needed out of the group. Kind of bowed out. So, and now they're contacting me and asking me if I want to be involved in some way, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready to. I know that mentally I can, but I just don't know if time-wise I'm really willing to commit to that, because that's a big commitment. So we'll see. Maybe one day I'll get involved in some Grief Share in some way or another. Mike says 1 year and months tomorrow. I started to get past the why bother with anything place. Awesome. So Mike, I'm so glad to hear that you're getting out of that place. I call that the valley of grief. You're starting to climb out of that big hole, that big valley that that you can get in. That's where like your lowest place is. And that's that transition from fresh grief to hope and acceptance and moving forward and learning how to live with the grief on a more permanent basis. So it sounds like that's where you are. Mary says, you are a big part of encouragement for me. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you. It gives me the feedback, lets me know that I'm in the right place and that I'm not wasting my time. And so plus it's a little, it's helpful for me too. Mike says, like a switch was flipped. All I can say is I just started doing things again, things that led to other things, building things, really. Females, it could be back into quilting. Exactly. So Mike, my current husband said the same thing. He said, I cried and cried and cried every day. He's like, I was at work and I just wear my sunglasses because he had JP, my current husband, he's widowed also, but he owns his own business and he has nobody that can work for him. And so he had to go back to work the day after his wife died. His wife died on a Wednesday and he had to go back to work on a Thursday. And so he said, for weeks and weeks and weeks, he just put his sunglasses on and cried and cried and cried while he was at work. He didn't like bawl. He was just, constantly had the tears coming down while he was delivering the milk. And he said, one day I just said, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm tired of crying. I'm tired. I just don't want to do this anymore. And he just decided to stop. He didn't decide to get happy, but he decided to stop actively with the grief on the outside so that the other things could start snowballing. And so kind of like Mike said, once you start doing, and I have a course for people who are in that place, stuck in that place. It's called the Grief Pivot Course, griefpivotcourse.com. And a couple of the lessons in there talk about that, about how, like, have you heard the saying that when people say, well, we're waiting to have kids until we can afford them? Well, if you really wait to have kids until you can afford them, no one will ever have kids, right? You just have them and then you figure out how to afford them later. Well, it's kind of the same way with the grief. If you wait until you feel like getting out of bed before you get out of bed, you might not ever get out of bed. And so sometimes you just have to do it anyway. Like, you have to do the things, and then your heart kind of follows. Your mind will follow after that. And so, you have to sort of fool yourself. You fake it till you make it. You get to pretend and you have to do the things, just like when you're trying to lose weight, they say that you have to eat like a thin person before you're actually thin. You have to eat like a fit person in order to become fit. So you have to work out like a healthy person in order to become healthy, right? You have to do the things first and then everything else follows. So grief is no different. You have to walk the walk of a healing person while you're in grief, before you feel like it, before you want to, in order for you to actually get there. Because if you wait until you feel better to do the things, you're not going to feel better because you're not doing the things. And so it's backwards from what you think. But, if you really think it through, it's really not. It's just that you have to do it anyway. You have to do it sad. You have to get up even though you're sad. You have to do it even though you don't want to do it. And then eventually everything else will kind of catch up. All right. Mike says some females working on cars, maybe paint the living room, etc. Yeah. So find yourself a routine or a hobby or something, something that gives you joy, something that brings you peace, something that keeps your mind off of the grief and lets you think about something different for a change. It's a change in it's your change in a routine, or it's a creation of new routines. It's called a pattern disruptor, because what happens is when you live in grief for too long and you start becoming used to it, and you start becoming addicted to it, then you start to develop the habit of grief. And then you're living in the habit of grief all the time. And so the way to get out of that is to develop things called pattern disruptors. And so we'll talk about that in the course. We can talk about that on a different video, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to get out. All right, let's see. Mike says 8 months from above, and then says the start was still who cares after I finished. Right. When you first start, you're like, okay, I did it. So what? Since last Monday, I feel the accomplishment now after the job is done. Used to feel nothing after the finish. So it sounds like you're making progress. Awesome. He says, it's just me here, 30 miles from town. Closest friend is 3 miles away. Family is 1,000 miles away. Alone in the forest. Critters here make it awesome. So it sounds like you're kind of out in the wilderness there. So like Grizzly Adams. So maybe your best friends are your critters and your animals, and they need you. And so if that's what gets you up and gives you purpose in life, that's okay too. All right. And hopefully you'll be able to spend some time with family during the holidays, maybe. We'll see. All right. So that's my topic for the day. And I appreciate all of you who came in. And if you're not sure of where your tribe is or how to find it, then go to the Surviving Holidays group, sign up there, go to our Facebook group, onehappywidow.com/group/onehappy. No, take that back. Reverse. Facebook.com/group/onehappywidow. The link is in the description. You can find all the links you need in the description below. But reach out because we're there. We're ready. We're ready to take in all the new members and the people who are looking for help. And we can be your tribe. We're already set up and ready and waiting for you. So thank you for coming in. Thanks for watching the video on the repeat if you're here on the recording. And don't forget to subscribe if these videos are helping you at all. Ring that notification bell so that you won't miss any future videos. And I appreciate all of your support. And the group, Mike says, the group you are creating here will grow. That's my hope, because the more it grows, the more people I can help, and the more we can help each other, because there's a lot of us out there, right? And so we got to find everybody so that they know where they can come to get some help and support. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Catch me next week on Monday at noon. Monday at noon is my new thing. It's lunch with Leo. So I plan to do it if I can at all possibly be here every Monday at noon Eastern time. You can catch me live. And if not, you can catch me in the recording. All right. That's going to be it. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.